Religion scholars say the term social justice. Now listen, this is a defense. And if you know history, this is their defense. Religion scholars say the term social justice was coined in the 1800s, codified by successive popes, and adopted widely by Protestant churches in the 1900s.
After the progressive movement had kicked in.
I mean, for the love of Pete, Marx started in 1848. All of this stuff started percolating. Nietzsche comes along. Everything. It's a redistribution of wealth. I've told you this. The progressive movement started with people like Woodrow Wilson, whose father was a preacher. They perverted Christianity. The concept is that Christians should not merely give to the poor, but also work to correct unjust conditions that keep people poor. Yes, you're exactly right. We should, as Christians, do that. But then there's that added little step of having the government do it, not you. Mm-hmm. Many Christians consider it a recurring theme in Scripture. Mr. Beck himself is a convert to Mormonism, a faith that identifies itself as part of the Christian family, but nevertheless rejected by many Christians. Philip Barlow, Arrington professor of Mormon history and culture at Utah State University, said one way to read the Book of Mormon is a vast tract on social justice. Yes, that is one way to read it.
I've never heard it described that way, but okay.
A lot of Latter-day Saints would think that Beck was asking them to leave their own church. Yeah, I'm sure. Mr. Barlow said that just this year, the church's highest authority, the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, issued a new handbook of instructions. I love this, which they revised the church's threefold mission and added a fourth mission statement: care for the poor.
People! That's individuals!
That's you caring for the poor.
Unbelievable.
I have no problem. Faith, hope, and charity. Yes, that's what Jesus said. But when Jesus came down, you know, who are the Pharisees? Who are the Pharisees?
A group of intellectuals.
Wait. The intellectual elite of the time?
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Did they have any power?
Mm-hmm.
Did they?
Mm-hmm.
Did they have any power in government?
Mm-hmm.
Did they have any power in the church of the time?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
So they were the elite intellectual elites. They were the political elites of their time, and they were the religious elites of their time, and they were all the same thing. They were all three of those in one.
Weird, huh?
It's weird. And so, what did Jesus say? Get away from the Pharisees! Because they had perverted the mission of Christ into what? Political power. Hello?
Yeah, the easiest way to boil down what you're talking about is don't let your church turn into a political arm.
Yes.
That's really controversial.
Your church is there, and that's why I said I don't care what church you go to. I don't care. As long as that church is telling you and helping you be a better person, be a better person, be more honorable, be more honest, be more giving. But once that church starts to preach social and economic justice, especially through the structure of a giant government, well, now that's something totally different. Now you're talking about a church that is getting involved in government itself. We don't do that.
No. I mean, the easiest way to understand what you were talking about is if you were talking about the poor, your own church, obviously, they pointed out there that they do care about caring for the poor. So were you advising people to leave your own church? Were you advising your other parishioners to walk out of your church because you can't take it? Did you leave your church this week, Glenn? Did you leave it?
No, I didn't.
Why not? Clearly, the New York Times says you were calling for yourself to leave your own church.
Because everyone can follow the dictates of the Spirit and worship any way that they want. The idea is separation of church and state. When it comes to it is not a political arm. Your churches are not political arms. Now, that doesn't mean you don't stand up for what you believe in, especially if it is an attack on what you believe. You stand up for what you believe. If you think that you can get in, I know we have to wrap it up. If you think you can get into bed with these socialist, Marxist, social justice and economic justice people and retain your right to worship in the way the Spirit dictates to you, you're out of your mind. Because they'll be your friend today, but they are going to turn on you and rip your heart of your church out. Here is the main point that I want to get across, and we are going to receive an awful lot of heat, and we already do, and come under attack, and we already do, and receive death threats, which we already do, because we are delving into the most dangerous place you can go. I mean, we have the bold communist saying that I am the enemy of the communists and of the extreme left and the progressive movement. I am their enemy. Yes, I am. Now, why such a concerted effort to silence me? Because I truly believe we have the answer, and that is education. Because what do? They have been, for a very long time, trying to erase history and write it themselves, because they know if you're connected to history, they lose. The other thing they do is they always change and confuse the language. Political correctness comes from the progressive movement. Change and confuse the language. Look at this case. Social justice. There's a lot of people that will say social justice, and some people don't mean Marxism. But others do. And you need to know which is it. The people who brought us, the language into the political religious sphere were looking for ways to bring progressivism into the church. It continues today. Where's black liberation theology come from? Black liberation theology, Jeremiah Wright's theology, comes from South America. The church had the power down there. The church was all important. What the church said, people listened to. It wasn't the government, because the government was always corrupt. People had faith in the church, and they knew they could never have a communist revolution if it wasn't for the church. If the church wasn't into it. So what did they do? They came up with black liberation theology. It's Marxism. And they got it, spooned it in to the Christians, piece by piece, just little bit progress, little by little, spoon feed it to people until the church would decay and collapse on itself. Why do people in Europe not go to church? Because it's one with the government. It always has been. You must protect your church and make sure that it is not an organ for the government. That doesn't mean that you don't fight and protest and, your church when it comes to a moral issue like abortion, that you don't stand up and fight for it. But you don't become one with the government. Separation of church and state. Progressives have been waiting for this moment for 100 years.
This